What's up guys, welcome to my newest video. Today we'll be taking a lap around Silverstone. As you can see, I have listed some practice laps where you can pause and see my lap times around Silverstone. Today we'll be driving the the Mercedes SLS AMG. And first off, we are driving the Silverstone track. So we're starting off on lap 5 since I had to do a little warm-ups to get to know the track. First off, we come to a mild corner followed by a sharp corner. The racing lines so far have been me trying to learn where the ideal racing line is, meanwhile trying to push myself for quicker and quicker times. In the future, I may be doing something like a marathon where I just do 100 laps with the ideal racing line and then seeing if that is better for my lap times in the future. But the first couple of laps will be consistent of me driving around, doing some okay pulls. I think the track lines were okay for most part. A lot of the time I can see that I brake too early or way too late, so I need to keep a better eye on where my lines are and where my braking points are. Now we're jumped into lap 7 because lap 6 was invalidated. Lap 7 was one of the better ones, but I'm not quite there yet, I think. I still need to look more at the braking zones. As we come up here, you can see that I brake maybe a bit too early in order to where I want to be on the apex. That corner we just saw has a very late apex, and this corner we see now has a very late apex as well. So I need to figure out where the ideal racing line is for those two corners to connect in order to get a better time. You can also see here that I carried too much speed through, and then that lap time should probably have been invalidated. But going into lap 8, we're going to see a small bump in the lap time. I'm getting a feel for braking zones, but still need to work on my gear shifts. As we come up here, we can see that the time is a little bit worse in that last section, and that probably comes from the missing gear shift and the failed entry to the corner. I feel like this track is really good for learning track lines, braking points, and going slow about trying to learn racing in a sim. You can see there that that section was actually quite better because I went on the throttle earlier and my racing line was more ideal. As we come in here, we can see that the line is far more ideal and I carry far more speed through. And if you notice, you can see a little green box on the right and left side. And up on the time you can see that we entered that zone earlier. Actually almost a second earlier. And in the beginning, my times will be 1 second better, 1 second better, 2 seconds better, because there's so much time to get right if I do these sessions more. As I'm becoming an amateur, then the times differences will be a lot smaller, I believe, but in the beginning I will see seconds better, hopefully. And yet again I went over because I didn't look at the braking zone properly. Now we entered lap 15, which is one of my best laps. At the beginning of a lap I carried a lot more speed through the corner, and I think that helps a lot in the next two corners. That last corner I was way happier about because the racing line was far more ideal and I carried a lot more speed through. That last section was about a second or 2 seconds better than the lap 7 and 8 you just saw. So there's a lot of time to be had in this section. Carrying a lot more speed through here, staying inside the racing lines, and new personal record. What I would say is racing on e-racing is extremely addictive. When you see that green that you did better than last time, you immediately think, I can do even better. So it wakes the perfectionist in me that I have to do the perfect lap. We have to get faster and get faster and get faster. Do a better ideal racing line, maybe develop the racing line a little bit better. This corner I'm quite happy about because we did a late entry, but the racing line is far more ideal for where I want to be in the zone and what line I want to have. So as we see, I carry a lot more speed through the corner, and as I enter this last corner, I carry a lot more speed through. And we have a new personal record, which is the best time I had on this track. So the next couple of laps will be a little bit worse. I couldn't quite get down to 1.57 again, but I hovered around 1.606, which I'm okay with, but it's not where I want to be. I would like to be maybe a low 4 or even a 3, I believe is possible. I hope, but time will tell as I do more practice sessions. As we come in here, we can see that I learned to carry more speed through, but not quite the ideal racing line that I wanted. You can also see on the track where the ideal racing line actually is, and I'm not quite nailing it yet. Um, in order to try and nail it, I lose a little bit of speed, so I think I would have to find a mix between following that line and learning where my own line is. In the future, I will be playing more competitive with other players, but for the start, I will do a lot of practice sessions in order to get a feel for the courses before I join others players, so I don't smash everyone or is too slow. I believe there's a lot to be learned just doing practice sessions because we're very habit creatures. So in order to get the perfect times, we need to get muscle memory of the track. And that muscle memory only comes from doing 100, 200, 1,000 laps of this track. So it's a very slow process, but I believe that it's worth it in the end to know the tracks in and out and know where the cars react and where they are more, where you need to be more careful with the throttle, with the brakes, where you need to keep your braking zone in different cars, in different environments. But first off, I'm just trying to get a feel for a track and the car. This car will probably be my go-to for the practice sessions because I feel like it has the right balance between steering and ease of use for a newcomer. I don't feel overwhelmed and I feel like I can push this car to its limits, or near its limits without actually messing up my lines too much. Um, if I went down to a smaller car, I believe that my lines would be more ideal, but they would also be a lot slower and I wouldn't be pushing myself as much, which is what I mostly want to do here. I want to push myself to see where I can be better. So from lap 20 to 30 I messed up a lot of the laps because of braking zones like you see here. As we enter lap 21, you can see that I yet again did a far too wide turn and will be therefore be jumping to the next turn. What I've learned from these sessions is that the braking zone is very important to figure out where do you want to brake. Especially in this car, I need to be more vigilant and look better at the map and see where my braking zone is. If you don't know, you need to brake before the turn, turn in, and then accelerate. Where I've been, my braking zone isn't quite there yet. I need to figure out on this track where I want to brake and where I see my ideal braking zone. The funny thing is that even though a lot of these laps went validated because I went out, I can see that the times are not that far off from where my other times are. So I can see that quite clearly the speed I carried through might be semi-right because it carried more speed through and it saved me some time. For instance, on this lap, you can see that I earlier get to the green markers on the left and right at about 30, which is actually one of the best laps I've done and one of the best zones I've done. That zone 2 is about a 32. Sorry, zone 1 is about a 32. Zone 2 is about a 30. So there's a lot of speed to be had on that track. For the rest of this video, I will just leave you to some of my last laps. Feel free to watch them and comment on what you think I can do better if you feel like it. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed the video and I hope to see you next time.